Hi, I'm Susie Baxter, known as a child as Susanette Howell. I served just 4 years as creative nonfiction editor for Bacopa Literary Review, published by the Writers Alliance of Gainesville, and I've written 3 books. The first is Pumping Sunshine, a memoir of my rural childhood, and this one won the Royal Palm Literary Award. I wrote a book, C.G. and Ethel, which is a family history, and then Write Your Memoir that I use in the classes I teach at Santa Fe College. My first book is about my childhood, Pumping Sunshine. And you may wonder why I titled it Pumping Sunshine. When I was a child, people would ask my dad where we lived. And he'd say, "Oh, we live so far in the backwoods, we have to pump sunshine through hollow logs." Our old cracker house had no electricity, no indoor plumbing. We didn't even have an outhouse when I was born. And my sisters and I had 2 sisters, each 1 year and 2 years older than I. And we walked to a little country schoolhouse about a mile away where there were 3 rooms with 2 to 3 grades in each room. And our old cracker house was essentially just 4 rooms with a big hallway through the middle, a breezeway through the middle, and a big front porch and a back porch that had been converted into 2 small rooms. So I entered this in the Florida Writers Association's contest in 2018, about the time that it published, and it won the Best in Memoir that year, the Royal Palm Literary Award, and second of the overall categories. So I'll read a short excerpt from Pumping Sunshine now. In the kitchen after supper, soapy water dripped from Mama's fingertips into the chipped enamel dishpan as she lifted her arm to brush loose strands of perm dark hair off her forehead. She couldn't stand hair in her face. Bangs like Patsy had would have annoyed Mama no end. Curls like mine that dangled to my eyes, pure torture for Mama. "CG," Mama called to Daddy, "how about bringing the wash tub in so the girls can take their baths by the fire?" Through the kitchen doorway, I had a clear view of Daddy, sitting in a straight-back chair by the hearth. Logs blazed. Daddy was studying a lesson in a Sunday school book that lay atop his open Bible. Expecting him to look up and answer Mama any second, I stared at the crown of his head. His hair was nearly as dark as Mama's, except when the sun or firelight hit it just right. Then you could see sparkles of auburn. His barber clipped it short, as if Daddy still trained with the Florida National Guard. With his hair only an inch long, he didn't need to plaster it down with Brill cream the way most men at church did theirs. Daddy didn't even need to comb his. You couldn't tell if he did or didn't. He kept reading, not answering Mama. She rewarmed the dishwater with steaming water from the white enamel kettle on the oil stove and swished the dish rag around plate after plate before handing each to Patsy. We had our assembly line going. Patsy, who would soon start first grade, rinsed the dishes in another enamel pan before handing them to Anitha, the next oldest, who stood ready with a muslin towel. The dishes, pots, and pans ended up with me, the one everybody still called the baby, even though I was already 3 years old. I put them away, if that is, I could reach the proper shelf. Mostly I couldn't, so I set the dishes and a few other things on the cook table for Mama to put away later. When she finished, Mama opened the kitchen shutter and tossed the dirty dishwater through the dark space into a frostbitten 4-o'clock bush in the backyard. Daddy had been talking about adding a kitchen sink and pipes that would bring well water into the house and take it out again. Indoor plumbing, he called it. Our grandparents, who lived just down the road, had all that in their new house built in 1944, the year I was born. They even had an indoor toilet. Okay. And this is another book that I wrote, C.G. and Ethel. It's a family history. Pictured on the front, my mother and father, C.G. and Ethel Howell. It's kind of a rags to riches story. My dad never became a multimillionaire, but he did well for himself. His father passed away when he was 8 years old. His widowed mother was expecting her 7th child, and she had a 7th grade education. When she became ill, he had to be placed in an orphanage. But he later was taken out by an uncle. He helped his uncle on the farm. He was determined to finish his high school education, and he finally did at age 21. He married his high school sweetheart, my mother, Ethel Rye at the time, and they purchased a farm, something that his father had never owned. His father had been a sharecropper all of his life, and my father was able to purchase his own farm of 280 acres, which he farmed for most of his life until he went with the Florida Forestry Service and then planted the acreage in pines, which it is still in today. I'll read from the first chapter. My boyhood, and this is in my father's words. Daddy was sick in bed after collapsing in the field while breaking corn. I was 7 years old and Mama was expecting her 7th baby. We were living on the Cheshire place after moving there from the Gamble place. It was the end of 1923. While Daddy was sick, Granddaddy Boatwright came by one day. I think he came over to get me to help him. I often rode on his plow. My weight helped hold it in the ground. Mama happened to have baked some pies that day, so she offered some to her daddy. Thanks, Clara, believe I will, Granddaddy said. So Mama served him a slice. Any of you kids like crust? Granddaddy asked as he was eating near his crust. I do, I said, before anybody else could. Granddaddy Boatwright didn't have any teeth and couldn't eat that hard crust, so I ate his crust. He then ate another piece of pie and gave me that crust too. I think my granddaddy went on to eat 3 or 4 pieces of pie before he quit. I ate every bit of crust he gave me. Since that day, though, I've never cared much for pie crust. I teach a memoir course once a year at Santa Fe College, and this is the book that I use in that course. It's a book I wrote, Write Your Memoir, One Story at a Time. I think it's really important for everybody to leave a legacy. And let me just read you the first page in the first chapter. Each of us has unique experiences and ideas that might entertain and benefit others, but unless we record them, they're likely to die with us. Consider the quote at Wright, often attributed to Alex Haley, the author of Roots. It says, when a person dies, a small library burns. Your life is like a fingerprint. No other person has the same life, remembers the same things you do. Even a twin would remember it differently. So I think it's really important that you consider writing about your life. All of the books are available on Amazon. Pumping Sunshine is available both in paperback and hardback, on Kindle, and recently I turned it into an audible book. Lori Jo Daniels reads the book and does an awesome job. C.G. and Ethel is available in paperback, as is Write Your Memoir.